This is episode 39 of the Relentless Man podcast. Cyrus Moassessi. Hi, and welcome to the Relentless Man podcast. We are your host, Christian modjaiso, and our mission in life is to help men die empty, to make sure that you die having used up every ounce of potential that is trapped within you, so that when you're on your deathbed, you have no regrets because you gave life your all. Now, in this episode, we're going to have a chat with Cyrus, and Cyrus is a sophomore at Pitzer College. Just recently declared his major to sociology, and he's a really interesting guy to talk to, and in particular, he's a really deep guy because in this particular conversation, we go into the very depths of the fundamental questions of life, questions of purpose, questions of meaning, questions of surrender, acceptance. We go really deep. And one really amazing thing about Cyrus is that, as human beings, we're at different levels of development. And what that means in particular is that sometimes we're very afraid. We don't want to go into certain places. We don't want to tackle certain questions. But the really interesting and fascinating thing about Cyrus is that, he's willing to go to those places. He's willing to tackle uncomfortable questions. And as a result, he was able to give us very many deep insights into the human mind, into how he thinks about the world. And he'll also be of value to you in terms of figuring out the answers for yourself to some of these fundamental questions of life. We talk about, the purpose of his life and how does one determine one's purpose? Is there a purpose for one's life? We think about knowing. How can we know something? In particular, how can we know something beyond description? That is, without labeling it. We think about thoughts and how thoughts may actually turn out to be a burden to you. And what to do about that. The question just comes up. We think about knowledge. What is the nature of knowledge? We think about the past. Is it an illusion? We think about, how to live a fulfilled life. Acceptance, how to accept our lives. And is it possible to accept our lives? Or should we always accept that there's certain things we'll never be able to accept? We go really deep. And the thing is that, look, one main thing that we get from, one main realization is that really, it's hard to prove that there's any difference between people. We look different, but if you look at the mind, how do we know that the mind is separate? And in particular, these fundamental questions of life, we seem to grapple with them together as humans. We are all afraid. We are all trying to live happily. We are all trying to understand our lives. We are all trying to know. We are all trying to find meaning. And Cyrus gives us deep insights into these ideas. So we really hope that this episode will be of great value to you. All right, enough with the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, we give you Cyrus. All right. So welcome, Cyrus. Welcome to the Relentless Man podcast. We're very happy to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
So, what have you been up to?
Choosing classes, living life, trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life at the moment. That's been a really big, struggle and big thing that's been on my mind recently is figuring out what I'm going to do with college and then what I'm going to do further on after that and how I'm going to make a stable life for myself and how I become independent from my parents. So it's been a lot to think about.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. Are you thinking about this every day pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. Up until I'd say today was really I wouldn't say last day that I was thinking about this because obviously I think about this all the time. But today finally declared my major and I feel a little bit more at ease that I kind of know what path I'm going down in life and what I'm going to do. So that has brought a lot of ease to my life, especially since it kind of feels like everything's crushing all the time. The whole world, the weight of the world is just always on my shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a common thing, right? And it seems to get worse as one gets to being a senior, because you're a sophomore now, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, I definitely think that's the case. And sophomore year, I think, is also kind of difficult, at least for me, because it's this weird in-between ground where you can switch what you're doing, you can switch majors, you haven't really done much through college, but at the same time, it's a very insignificant year in the grand scheme of things, at least in my opinion, because senior year, obviously, you're looking for jobs and doing your thesis and finishing courses and your majors. And junior year, you're doing just like major and minor requirements. But sophomore year is just kind of this downward like trough. It's like a trough.
Right.
That's how I look at it. Where it's just a lot of stagnation and way too much thinking. And that's actually been my problem recently. It's just constantly being lost in my own thoughts. And just thinking, what if I do this? What if I do that? What if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? And then, like, how will people react to different things like that? Do you ever think about that?
Oh, yeah, about thinking?
Time?
Yeah.
Think about thinking, think about life.
Yes, in fact, the last episode we made was on, guess what the title was? Thought.
Oh, a thinking podcast.
There you go.
Episode.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It was just, the whole focus of it was on this idea of us we're constantly thinking about stuff. Mm-hmm. In particular, there's this inability to stop thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know have you ever felt that thinking has been...
I have felt that so many times. It was funny, actually. I was on a phone call with one of my parents today, and last night, actually. I mentioned it, where I said, I wish at times I could just shut off my brain and not think about anything. But that's never the case, and whenever I think that, I just start thinking more.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's a crazy loop, but not necessarily bad. I enjoy thinking, but it can be detrimental.
Yeah. Does it feel like a burden, thinking?
I think at times. Of course. No, I think it can be a burden at times, at least for myself, because oftentimes I get stuck in my thoughts, and then I can't actually do what needs to be done. So I find at times thinking limits me, especially in like school and academic settings. I start thinking like, oh, I need to take all these classes, I have to do this, I have this coming up, and now I've spent 4 hours thinking and 0 hours actually doing. So that's when thinking, I think, becomes detrimental to me.
Right. Have you ever thought about how to tackle the problem?
Sleep, I guess.
Hey, but then with the sleep, we got nightmares too, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, dreams are wild. Dreams, I think, are definitely a crazy extension of thinking and a crazy extension of the subconscious. But no, I have no methods, I think, for stopping thinking. I think the amount of times I said I think is getting a little ridiculous.
Oh no, that's I think I should stop thinking. Yeah.
No, I think what works best for me when I realize I'm thinking too much is I try and think about just like one particular thing and one like very easy thing that I know I can complete. Like I'll put myself in a zone where it's like, okay, I've got a lot going on in life. Let's think about what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Like what would I like to have? What would be fun to have? And maybe why do I want that at the moment? Right. And that I think calms me down a little bit, brings down the thoughts, eases things.
Okay, so the idea we're talking about here is limiting the thoughts to just like very few, maybe just one.
Mm-hmm. Limiting down to one thought. So instead of trying to think of everything at once, it's just one thing in depth. Which is a lot more manageable than trying to think about like 10 things.
10 things, right. That's like focus, isn't it?
Yeah, complete focus. I guess that's another issue.
Trouble focusing.
Trouble focusing.
Yeah, this is a common problem. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. Trouble focusing. And then, at least for me, whenever I start just thinking about like life or politics or what's going on in the world, it starts bringing on like more and more things. So like I see something in the news and it's about like an election. And so I think about politics, and then I think about like how the U.S. is divided, like with Democrats and Republicans, and it's polarized. And then I think about why is it polarized? And then I think about, why is each side so against each other when really they're not that different? And it just keeps branching into more and more thoughts. It gets pretty wild.
Yeah. This is like, that's a major problem. In fact, what you seem to be describing here is like thoughts being a burden.
Yeah.
It's like a burden that it appears we can do nothing about.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think more and more recently I've thought of my thoughts as a burden. Before, I think I enjoyed the idea of thinking and being like someone who just likes to think. But now I'm realizing that I love to think, but oftentimes I think too much, and that thinking just is this huge weight. Because constantly, I think at least once a day, I think about just like the world and like how the society we live in right now is far from perfect, and how a perfect society really can't exist in my mind. And sometimes that can be scary. Sometimes that can be very scary.
A perfect world is scary? How so?
No, I mean like the lack of knowing that there's never going to be a perfect world. We're never going to have a world where everybody loves each other unconditionally and this and that. Because those, in my opinion, are pipe dreams.
Right. Why do you think that that will never happen? That we can never create a perfect society?
I don't think we can, because as humans, we just value the wrong things far too much. And I think it's hard to explain. We talk about this a lot in sociology. But basically, I think humans see the way we measure things is through difference, not through similarity. And so I think because we look at things as being different, so like for example, like I noticed you have an iPhone, I have a Samsung, and that's like a difference as opposed to we both have phones, and that's like a commonality. And so I think that thought process oftentimes polarizes people, like whether it be race or religion and this and that. Instead of saying like, oh, look, my religion is similar to theirs or my culture is similar to theirs, it's, wow, look at how different this thing that they do is. So I think humans, until we, I guess, in my mind, interbreed with each other so much that there's just like one race, which, wow, that would take many, many years. But until we have like a single race, I'd say, there's going to be a lot of issues. And even then, there's going to be more issues because people just think differently. Like, no, I don't think I've ever met a single person, and I don't think I ever will meet a single person who shares the exact same thought process as me. Because, I mean, it's not possible. Do you think you'd ever meet somebody who shares the same opinion with you on everything? No.
Maybe, sharing the same opinion, that's unlikely. They'd have to have been coached or fed a shit ton of Christian propaganda or something like that, to think precisely. Even then, it's unlikely that they'd be able to, that they'd think precisely like we do. So wait, but let's get back to a point there. So are we saying that the reason we'll never truly have, let's say, unity or harmony in the world is because of these differences?
Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I think it's a lot because of the differences. It's a lot because of the way people think about differences. A lot of the way people, I mean, like everybody compares themselves and their self-worth and everything about themselves to that of others. Because if you don't have something else to compare to, then you really just don't. I'm explaining this, I guess, poorly. But if you don't have a standard, then you can't, I guess, tell what your positionality is or like where, I guess, you reside in the world.
Okay.
But then that brings up another issue because how can we determine what is standard? I don't think there ever really will be a standard person or like a standard human. Because, I mean, you look at like very basic actions and so many people have so many different opinions. Like, for example, drinking tea. Drinking tea, like the act of drinking tea is so different from culture to culture, whether or not it's like using two hands, using one hand, what type of tea, how you serve the tea. Right. It's so vastly different from person to person. And that's just like one small thing.
Mm.
But how can you call any one of those like the standard? Like, this is the normal way to drink tea. There's no normal way to drink tea. If you drink it without your hands, good for you. If you drink it with both hands, good for you. So I just feel that humans are far too different in nature to really be at peace with each other. To be fully at peace with each other. Because, I mean, that makes me think, I guess, of like the word utopia, which I believe is Greek. Don't quote me.
It sounds Greek.
It's either Greek or Latin, and it means like a world that never, like it's something that can't exist. Like the word itself literally means
just too perfect.
Yeah, it's just a place that doesn't exist. And so that's the way I look at it. That we can always have these ideal thoughts, and we can get very close. I don't think that as humans we can't get close. We can get very close to a good society, but I think we'll always have like deviance, like social deviance. But I mean, what even are social deviance if we can't even determine who makes good societal rules? But that I guess gets into a whole different discussion of just what are social norms, who creates social norms, like why do we accept them? Like, why is killing another person considered bad?
Yes.
Obviously, all of us say, well, obviously that's terrible. That's an awful thing to do. Mm. But then if you think even deeper, it's like, why do we think that? And it's, in my opinion, because obviously heartache to other people that you cause, you're actively removing somebody. I mean, that's a very morbid example. But it's just, it's weird. I mean, reality is a social construct.
Yeah, well, let's go back to the part about killing, right? The basic question, why is killing bad, right? So what you're saying is that when it comes to killing, we might say, okay, killing is bad because it causes pain to so many people and suffering to so many people. Mm-hmm. Right? And then obviously someone else is going to ask, well, why is causing pain and suffering to other people bad?
That's what I mean, where it's just you keep going from question to question and question, and it's just all this thinking and all these other questions that lead to more questions, and there's never really a true solution. Because, I mean, like I said, none of us are some higher power that gets to determine what is the law and what is the rule and this and that. We may think so. We may think that we have that power. But at the end of the day, each one of us has no more on the other person. Or no more status on the other person as a human. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, there's like lots of places to delve into. Mm-hmm. So, right, I mean, it makes sense, the part about, well, killing, right, like, it's hard, the thing with, like, the killing question, right, is like, why is it wrong to kill? Mm-hmm. If we keep digging deep into that question, we have more questions and more questions and more questions.
So right? Neither of us will have an answer.
Right. Philosophers have been debating this for centuries. Mm-hmm. Right. But still the question arises, is there really no answer to that question? Or is it that we just haven't found one?
I think that there's always an answer, but I think the answer, I'm trying to think of the way to word this. The answer is created by humans, which is problematic in itself, because then it can be questioned and broken down again. But I guess the only true answer would be if every person were to come to a similar consensus on like the answer to an issue. So like with killing, like a vast majority, I would say at least 99% of humanity agrees that killing is not okay. So then that would be the answer. But I don't think that there's ever like a true answer. Like I don't think there's some stone we're going to find that has inscribed in it that killing is bad. Well, I mean, actually Christians believe that. But yeah.
Well, yeah.
See, now you've got me thinking about thinking, which is making me not even able to give answers. So I'm like, what even are answers? Because that's I guess another thing.
Yes, that's right.
It's what are questions and then what are answers. answers.
That's right.
And the answers form questions, and the questions form answers, and it's just this endless cycle of no one knowing what the fuck is going on.
Well, let's delve into it. What are questions?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, well, it's fine. We could just make guesses and see what we find.
I think questions are any kind of unknown idea that either needs to be answered or someone or something has the desire to answer. So I think at the very basic root of a question, it's an idea or an observation. And then it just becomes.
Wait. So let's make sure we're understanding. So a question is like, okay, one guess we're making. Possibly a question could be an unknown idea. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So like, for example, I go outside and I look at like this giant big bush or something like that, and I say, okay, I don't know what that is. And that's the formation of the question. It's like that moment where I have uncertainty that is the question.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So, right, whenever we have uncertainty...
Yeah, so I guess questions in essence are uncertainty. It's just any uncertainty.
Okay, so, all right. So if we find ourselves in a situation where we don't understand something or we're uncertain, then that is a question? Is that what we're saying? Or
yes and no.
Okay, please explain.
Well, actually, no. I'll agree. Yeah, that is a question. Anytime that we feel uncertainty or we have uncertainty, I think that's the equivalent of a question, regardless of what it is. Like, I'm trying to think of an example. Going on like a long hike or something like that you're afraid of doing. That uncertainty, I guess, becomes a question, and that question, that empirical question, would be like, why are you afraid of going on a hike? Or like, just why are you afraid? And then like, what is fear? And so it's, I guess then the question itself isn't uncertainty, but uncertainty is the root of questions.
Okay. So out of uncertainty is where questions arise. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, well...
Which I guess in itself is very self-evident.
Yeah.
Clearly, if we don't know something, it becomes a question.
Yeah. Right. Or are we saying it becomes a question, or we can form...
Question. Yeah, we form a question.
Right. Okay. Whenever you face uncertainty, are you always thinking of the question for that uncertainty, or
I mean, I'd like to
are you just forming a question?
No, many times when I'm just uncertain, it's more like, oh shit, I don't know what's happening. I don't think about it too much. Sometimes I do think about that, especially more in like social settings or like things that are like quote unquote like out of my comfort zone. Like if I have that kind of uncertainty, like for example, like going to a group or some kind of event or whatever with people that I don't know, and then I'll be like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to that, or I feel this uncertainty, and then I think about it, and I'm like, okay, well, why do I feel that? Like, is it just I'm afraid of like interaction, or I'm afraid that these people won't like me, or what is it that I'm actually afraid of? Because it shouldn't be the event itself. Or it might be actually. So I have to think about it. I definitely do think about it.
Right. So we're saying wherever there's uncertainty, well, there are questions. So now we think about, well, does that help us to figure out what questions are? If they're just like arising from uncertainty, what's a question then?
I guess we're back to where we started.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I can't give you an answer that I believe would be a blanket answer. I don't think there would be a blanket answer for what is a question, but I guess I'll stick to it's just uncertainty and the inquiries that come from uncertainty.
Well, no, let's actually work with inquiry, right? So, I mean, it appears that every time we are asking a question, we're inquiring into something.
Right.
Could we reduce a question to an inquiry?
Yeah, no, I think that would be acceptable. I think it gets a little bit shady definition-wise because an inquiry itself is a question, but at the same time, I picture it more like a short-lived thought, or I guess that spark of uncertainty where it's like, okay, I don't know this. Why don't I ask? So I guess questions in themselves are uncertainty and lack of human understanding. So, because I think I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. I mean, the only reason we really ask questions is, I guess, to fulfill ourselves, and in a sense, to gain that knowledge, to bridge that gap between the known and the unknown, or fill that gap actually,
right?
Of the unknown, not bridge the gap.
Hey, what's the difference? Okay, wait. When we're asking a question, we're saying this reflects our desire to either, well, now there's two ways, right? Fill the gap between the known and the unknown, or bridge the gap between the known and the unknown. What's the difference?
Yeah. I think there's a big difference actually.
Okay.
I think filling the unknown would be the I guess the pursuit of knowledge of everything, like just absolute knowledge. Bridging the gap between the known and the unknown, I think, is more of an acceptance that the unknown will always exist. And that you can fill in, you can add stuff to the unknown and make it known. And it's like the bridge becomes literally like a bridge where things are being crossed from side to side, really only unknown to known. As opposed to filling the unknown, which in my mind, just I picture like this, I guess, infinite struggle of someone trying to amass all the knowledge in the universe, which is just
okay. So here we think of filling the unknown as there's just trying to amass try to get rid of the unknown, kind of just trying to know everything, right?
Right.
And what's bridging the gap? Is it more of an incremental? Is it more incremental, like increasing how much you know?
Yeah, it's increasing the unknown instead of trying to, or increasing the known,
right,
as opposed to trying to fill the unknown with, or instead of having the unknown become the known, it's just taking things from the unknown and putting them into the known.
Right. Yeah. But always recognizing that there's always going to be stuff we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I guess that's just kind of an idea in itself. The idea of the unknown and coping with it. I guess coping with the unknown.
So, are we supposing that it's not possible to know everything?
Yeah. No. I think that could be a pretty widely accepted response that no one's gonna know everything ever. I mean, maybe a computer will. I mean, actually, who knows? I don't even know. We could evolve into some crazy ass species in 2,000 or 3,000 years that suddenly becomes aware of everything and is just floating, I guess, particles and energy and whatever. But that's more, I think, along the lines of religion and fiction.
No, not realistic.
No, not realistic at all.
Okay. Let's say we had to come up with a reason for why we can never know everything. How could we do that? Other than I mean, if we just say that everybody agrees with it, yeah, that's okay. But I mean, that doesn't feel as convincing. Could we come up with something more convincing as to
Yeah.
as to why we can
so.
never know everything?
I think so. I think one of the big reasons, aside from just how expansive the known universe is,
Yeah.
just I guess having the understanding of how large I guess the existence we are is, it would be physically incapable for somebody to do that. But kind of lost my train of thought a little bit midway through that.
Well, that's fine. Would you want to
Yeah, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on, right?
I was starting to one way and I was like, what happened?
No, the question is just why can't we know everything?
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. I remembered my response. I think it's because everything around us changes so quickly and quickly and frequently, that there's just no way to even document it at all. Like, so much is going on while you and I are just sitting here around us. People are walking around. There's birds probably going to sleep right now. There's bugs around. Everything is shifting. The moon is moving. The moon's moving. The earth's moving. Everything is moving and everything is changing. So I just don't think it's possible to ever know anything because of how quickly things change.
Okay. So
even if you somehow were able to know everything up until 7:30, like right now, it would be so vastly different at 7:31 that there'd just be no way to cope. And I just know.
Okay. So here we're talking about, well, there's like layers of complexity. One layer of complexity seems to be that, well, things are changing so fast, right? It's like the stuff that's going to happen in the next minute is too much. Right. If you consider the entire universe, all the stuff that's going to happen in the next second, that's just too much to know. Mm-hmm. And so we can't possibly hope that like any human will be able to grasp and know all of that.
Right.
Is what we're saying. Right.
Exactly. And we can make very educated guesses. And that's where I think people think they know a lot or they know many things. Or, I mean, you and I'd say we know a pretty sizable amount about where we live and just kind of our lives up until this point. I mean, when you think about it, it's a massive amount of information that we keep stored, and we're not that old right now. What was I going to say again? But it's just strange, because when you think about it, really our thoughts are a lot of educated guesses. Like, for example, I could tell you right now, being the time that it is, that I have full confidence that many students at this college are going to eat. And I obviously don't know that because we're sitting in a room and I'm fully removed from that. But because of the knowledge I have of people's past actions and social norms, I can make that guess and say, there are people in the dining hall eating food. And it's things like that. It's where, I guess more and more, and especially now with you asking this, I kind of realize we make so many, I guess, assumptions, like on a day-to-day and minute-by-minute basis, that it's just unfathomable. I can't speak. Unfathomable.
That's how unfathomable it is.
Yeah, it's too much. It's overwhelming me.
So one way of what we're talking about here seems to go to the root of just knowing how we know stuff. Mm-hmm. And one thing we realize is that, well, there's a form of knowing which we'd think of as like accumulating data, knowing all the bits of information. Yeah. And we're saying there's just too much stuff to know. And there's all this stuff coming up every second, mm-hmm. right? So if we view knowledge as like gaining all the facts like that,
it's just impossible.
Right. Could there be is there another way of knowing? A way of knowing that's not about like just data and collecting facts?
I don't think so, but I think data and facts sounds or has a different connotation. I think data and facts makes at least me think of like numbers and spreadsheets and like hard evidence.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of data that we keep stored that is obviously not, like emotional data, like memories, things like that, where it's not it's you can't quantify it like at all. So I think to simplify things, yeah, it is just data.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we expand let's expand what data stands for, right? So like as you're saying, look, data.
It's like any information.
Right, any information. All right, emotions are data. The bird flying next to us is data. The noise around us, all of that is data. And
anything that our conscious and unconscious mind actively or inactively records is data.
Okay. And if we look at knowing like that, we can't know everything. There's just too much, and it's changing too fast.
Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, now I've been sitting there thinking a lot. I've kind of gone off on that little tree that I was telling you about earlier with the thoughts, and you get very philosophical. It's like, what even is knowing?
Yes,
like,
that is a key question. That's right. Mm-hmm. What is knowing?
How do we even know if we know something?
Right.
Because, I mean, so frequently you look at just people's, like, political opinions or just general knowledge. People will think that they know something, and then something else happens in life, and suddenly that knowledge that they have is completely thrown out the window. I mean, I look at it like people who convert to religion or people who convert out of religion, leave it behind. Like that was stuff that they took as knowledge and fact and things like that, and they've dumped it and said that I didn't know. So even if we do get to a point where we know things, it's like, what do we even know? I don't know. That's such a strange explanation of that. But I guess the idea I'm getting at is, what even is knowledge?
Right. Is for instance, if we let's say it's some political event and we think we know what happened, right? How can we know whether what we know is true?
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. You look at things like, especially with like the U.S. government,
yes,
how we do stuff. There's one thing that gets shared with the public, and then there's what actually happened. And it's that idea, I think, it's so kind of crazy about knowledge, where you have this perceived knowledge versus like actual knowledge.
Right.
And actual knowledge, I don't think, can really exist, because I think, I guess going back to the first thing we talked about, like people are just so different that no one can even agree on like what is what, and what really happened in situations. I look at it like it's the way how when a crime is committed and you have lots of witnesses, there'll be so much variation with the witness testimony.
That's right.
A lot of that is just because what people think they see or what people think they know is just so different.
That's right. Yeah, there was this long time ago. Not sure how long it was, but it's a TV show, Netflix, and it's not really a TV show. They apparently got real people, and then they simulated a mugging, and the people.
Oh, I know.
Did you see that?
Yeah,
yes, right.
Yeah.
And then later on, they get them to like, hey, please describe to us what happened.
And everything is totally wrong.
Right.
Totally different.
All the details are mixed up. People's memories have actually been tampered with. Mm-hmm. Right. So, does this prove to us that we can't really rely on our memories?
Yeah. No, I think human memory, we've known now through many studies, and I guess just thinking.
Yeah, studies may not even be necessary, right?
It's just human memory is flawed. I don't think the human brain has the capability to, process all that information and hold it all in a correct sense. Like I said, a lot of our lives are spent making educated guesses and making assumptions and doing this and that.
So, okay. So there's the accuracy of our memories. We can't really trust that.
Right, not at all.
Yeah.
The human mind is far too weak.
Yeah. Just the memories, right? And also there's the idea that when we remember an event, are we remembering the event or our memory of the event? So that if let's say after this conversation, we try to recall the conversation, right, will be recalling a memory of the conversation, not really the conversation.
Right.
And then later after that, so distortion has already happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
After that, we try to recall again.
Yep.
Yeah.
I forgot there's a term for it in psychology, but it's like the failure to like remember things correctly. And then another thing, actually, I thought this was super interesting. I took one psych course. People tend to look back on memories more positively than what they actually were. So when people say things like, oh, wow, I remember being 8 years old. It was such a great time then. Or like, oh, I remember 5 years ago when Obama was president, everything was super, super great. It was just so amazing and this and that. When that might not be the truth at all. And you could go back to that person if you could somehow time travel. You could go back to that person and they wouldn't think that at all. They'd be like, oh, I'm miserable, whatever, economic recession, like this and that. But it's like this failure to remember things correctly, like you were saying, and then that idea of you remembering a memory of something. You're not actually remembering the event.
No. Yeah. So, can we ever remember something accurately? Is the question that this seems to bring us to.
No, I guess at the end of the day, I think that the human mind is just not big enough and not capable enough to really remember things or know things accurately. We just, I guess, don't have the capability to understand the world around us well enough.
Right. How about, okay. So what we're thinking about here is that our brains are just not tough enough.
They're just not good enough.
Not good enough to remember stuff accurately.
Yeah, it's like text to speech or speech to text on your phone.
Yeah.
You can talk to your phone, you can talk to your computer, and it'll get like most of what you're saying right, but it's like those small errors. Yeah. And I look at the human mind as the same way. Like, you can be pretty accurate with things, but you're always going to have like small errors because it's just not possible.
Right.
Remember everything accurately or have a brain that can even comprehend that. It's weird, man. It's weird.
What if we like, so for instance, we're having this conversation, right? And then very likely the listeners are going to listen to it maybe a week or maybe a few days from now, etc. So will what they're listening to be this conversation?
Yeah.
Would that be an accurate representation of the conversation?
I think it would be a somewhat accurate. It would be an accurate representation of what we had said. They wouldn't obviously know the emotions, like what physical things we're doing right now, what the environment is like. I mean, even if you and I tried to explain this room, like, it would take hours to explain everything. It would take hours to explain the floor and what it looks like.
Right.
So I don't think they'll have that full grasp. And then on top of that, their minds, I'm sure, aren't going to be capable of remembering every single word that you and I say during this episode. So then they'll even have that same memory failure that we'll have. And they'll be remembering their memory of listening to the podcast.
Right.
So it's strange. It's strange because I guess how I think of it is in like a very scientific way, where as things are happening, it's like going from reality and like our setting like into our minds and then being archived. And it's not like everything past this very moment is a memory and is something I'm remembering.
Yeah.
I think that's a wild thing. Yeah, I don't think they're going to remember each word. I don't think they're going to be able to, I guess, take this as an accurate representation of the full podcast.
Right. Would they be able to? So we're saying they wouldn't be able to capture the stuff that's going on right now. We're looking at each other, we're speaking, we're in a room, there's people outside, there's an environment, there's the air, that's the carpet. Right.
Exactly. So like that's going back to like the idea of the unknown, that's their unknown.
Right.
Like the only thing that's given to them is our voices.
Right.
And everything else, they can ask questions, they might not necessarily get answers. And even if they get answers, like for example, like someone emails you and asks in like a week, oh, I was listening to your podcast. Can you explain the room? That's going to be all from your memory. Like, what are you going to say? You're not going to come back to the room and look around and say, oh, there's an orange painting on the wall. Oh, the light switch is 4 feet from the door to the left. Like, so I think it's just this. There's always an unknown aspect to everything that happens. Like, I don't know what you're going to ask me next. You don't know what I'm going to say right now. Everything that I'm saying, I barely know. Like, I know probably half a second before I say it.
Right. Okay. So are we saying that, the past is an illusion? Could we go that far?
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean...
We're going to get so philosophical, and I'm going to...
Hey, this is actually, I mean, I don't know, this stuff is covered in philosophy. The difference with philosophy is that in philosophy we tend to just, it's kind of like just studying stuff speculatively. Yeah. It's a little different if one is studying it to actually try and live by it. That's a different...
That's crazy.
Yes, that's right. Because what we're saying here is serious stuff. Mm-hmm. The past. Well, our memory is never accurate. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it an illusion?
It's strange. I don't know if it's necessarily an illusion or if it's just like a false memory or like a false recollection.
Okay.
Because like if you watch, I guess like if we were to put a camera in this room and we were to film everything that happens, then the past has actually happened. There's an account of the past happening. You can tell that it's real. Because I think the word illusion, at least to me, has some kind of aspect of like not real.
Not real, right.
And I definitely think there are illusionary aspects to the fact, or to the past, because we have poor memories. So if you lack that kind of documentation, you could potentially change the past. If you're not recording this, you and I could have a conversation and then write a letter about our conversation that we had. And there's going to be lots of stuff missing. There might be stuff fabricated. You have no idea. And in that case, the past isn't necessarily an illusion, but it's just false.
Right. Okay. So the past, we're saying the past could be real, but...
The past should technically be real.
Okay.
But there are false aspects to it, and there are unknown aspects to it.
Okay.
And those unknown aspects is, I think, where the falsehoods develop.
Okay.
It's when, like, you and I, like, for example, if I were to say, like, okay, what was the last sentence that came out of my mind? Or came out of my mouth? You could have a pretty decent guess, but it's obviously not going to be word for word for what I just said. Unless you have the same memory, in which case,
right.
Kudos to you.
Yeah.
But it's just like filling these unknowns, filling these gaps with, like I said, like all these assumptions. We make so many assumptions to, I guess, complete ideas and make ourselves feel like we know something.
Okay. Right. Just filling in the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the past is real, but our recollection of the past is faulty.
So, are we saying then, if we had perfect recall of the past would be real?
Yeah, I guess so. Or it wouldn't necessarily be real because I think the past is real right now. But there would just be no uncertainty with the past, and I don't think there would be falsehoods with the past. Because I think the past itself, by nature, is real. But it's when you have, like, false recollection that it becomes fake. Like, if I were, for some reason, to recall you asking, like, oh, like, did you ride horses ever? And then going and telling somebody, yeah, Christian and I talked about if I ride horses or not. Like, that's clearly a false recollection of the past, and not real, but... I don't know. You kind of fall on this weird slippery slope of what is real, what isn't real.
That's right. That's a very important question right there. Mm-hmm. Yes. Question, right. Yeah. How can we know if something is real? or not.
Exactly. And then you get into the very old, I guess, philosophical and sociological idea of the past is a construct, or not the past. Reality is a social construct. So basically, like, we don't even know what reality is. Reality is a term created by humans to try and quantify something. So, like, what even we just can't even really ask what is reality because we created the term reality.
Right.
It's crazy.
Okay, so we've created the term reality, right? And are we saying that reality is not what the word reality is supposed to describe?
Yeah, basically. Like, reality is a social construct in the sense that it's what we've tried to imagine is reality. Like, we think reality is, like, anything that exists in this current time. But that, I don't know, that's, to me, it seems kind of flawed because we just can't even determine that. Like, it sounds kind of like a load of bullshit in my mind when people are like, oh, reality is a social construct. But, like, the more and more I think about it, it's like, really, who are we to deem what is real and what isn't real? Because, I mean, we're even talking about this, and it's like, if now is reality, and then past would be reality, then what are those uncertainties and those, like, false memories? Like, are those also reality, or are they not? And then it's, I don't know, man. It gets weird.
Yeah.
The more and more I talk about it, I think the less and less I know. Because the more and more I start thinking about how little I know.
Right. So what we're noticing here is that if we keep talking and trying to describe thinking and trying to describe nature, trying to describe reality and what's real, the more we realize we don't know what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Right.
The more questions we ask, the less answers we have.
Yes.
And the less answers we have, the more questions we have.
Right.
So it's just this infinite loop of us going from what we perceive as, like, known information to just nothing. And just, we don't know anything, really, I guess. At the end of the day, we know nothing.
Well, okay. So, all right. What we have here is, so for most of us, we've been taught that the way to know something is to be able to, for instance, describe it clearly, be able to speak about it, talk about it in detail, right? In classes, we get good grades for describing things clearly, like good phraseology, all the details, etc. Why did we buy into the idea that that's how, that if describing something, like if you're able to be descriptive about something and state it clearly, that means you truly know it? Okay. It seems like we bought into this, didn't we?
We did buy into it. But I don't think I can even fathom a response for that, because that would require going back to, like, the evolution of humans and, like, the evolution of thoughts in animals.
Well, okay. Why do you say we have to go back to the evolution of thoughts in animals?
Well, like,
why do we need to go that far? Yeah.
Because it's like, what did the earliest form of a human think reality was? And, like, why did they even think of something as such? Why, like, I guess the question that is brought up in my mind from you telling me that is, like, obviously, why have people bought into this idea of, like, description and being able to clearly describe something makes it real, or not real? It just confuses me, and I don't really have, like, a proper response to it, because I can't tell you, like, why people evolved that way. That's
really perfectly fine. Yeah, it's that's what we do. We explore. We don't know the answers. And okay, if we try to look at it from, like, an evolutionary perspective, or like trying to look from the beginning of time, well, how can we know what really happened then, right? That ties our hands.
False recollection.
Yeah, there you go. Can we trust the memories? Can we trust what we read in the books about it? Okay, that's difficult. But we're not talking about like just as humans, but like, let's say you and I,
Right.
Cyrus and Christian, were born, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're born, this concept that to truly know something, we have to be able to describe it clearly in words, and that's a sign of knowledge, right? When we were born, did we have this point of view? It was unlikely, right? We didn't know that shit.
Mm-hmm.
We went to school, and then it was just taught to us as the de facto way to know things, is to be able to describe them clearly with words. Right.
And so I guess the question is, then why did we buy into that?
Yeah, that's right. Not evolutionarily speaking. Or, why did we buy into it? We were kids. Okay, maybe. But
so you asking that, now I'm thinking about me and why I buy into, I guess, anything.
Right, that is a good question.
I don't know.
When should we buy into stuff?
Do.
Right.
I think that's a big concept where, at least personally, I believe the reason why I've bought into any ideal ever is because other people agree with it. Other people have not necessarily created the idea, but subscribe to it enough that I don't want to say it becomes real, because what is reality? But yeah, I guess simple answer is because other people do. That's why I buy into it.
Right. It's just like the norm.
Mm-hmm. It's just the social norm. If the social norm was knowledge is if you can pee art into snow, that's how you just depict history, then I guess I would buy into that as well. But that's not the norm.
Right. So, sorry?
Oh.
Okay. As a kid, right? As a kid, we didn't really have a choice in the matter. We went to a school system and they told us, hey, are you able to describe the flower nicely in your essay? No, then you don't
fail.
Right, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Are you able to explain things clearly in words? No, you don't know shit. We learned that as kids. That's understandable. As adults, though, why do we... I mean, of course, everybody does it, but the question is whether is this... Why should we keep following this path? Why should we take it for granted that just,
I think simply because
description is reality.
We don't have a better option.
Yeah.
There's just nothing else. We, I guess, in our minds, we've become so content with the idea that knowledge is a particular way that we can no longer move away from it. I guess if someone else were to offer up some suggestion, let me know and I'll look at it. But I think simply it's because there's just no other option. We can't describe things well enough without describing them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If somehow we evolved to where we could just touch hands and suddenly we'd know everything and we'd see each other's memories and this and that, then maybe that would be a better way to approach what's known. If a student was able to touch their teacher's hand and show them the flower in their mind, then that's okay, I guess you know that. But I mean, come on, that's
yeah, sure, of course. It seems unlikely that grabbing someone is gonna somehow make us know stuff, right? And description, okay, it's helped us so far, but saying that your description is reality is also crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Basically, everything's bullshit. Reality is bullshit. Nothing exists.
Well, fine. Okay. But seriously, let's launch an inquiry into... we don't have to succeed or find an answer, but if we had to know something without description, what would that mean?
So how would we know something without description?
Yeah, right. No description.
Wow.
You didn't capture it on a camera. You didn't write an equation. No, how do you know stuff without?
I don't know.
That is the question.
I think my mind
Yeah.
my brain is just incapable of coming up with a response for that, because since I just haven't seen it, I just don't know. And I've subscribed, I guess, too heavily into the idea that description is this very physical thing, like seeing or reading or like emotion or whatever. But I just can't think of it being anything else. I mean, how about you? Like,
It's that is the question that we've been thinking about for quite some time, because we can extend, like, so for instance, with humans, right? There's this guy, they said, okay, we were born, and then they said, this is Christian, and then the description began.
Right.
This is Christian,
exactly.
right? He's 23 years old. He likes bananas but doesn't like potatoes. He
Like potatoes.
No. Okay, let's say he likes bananas but he hates tofu, right?
Okay,
Right.
that's fair.
Right. He goes to Pitzer College but doesn't go to these other colleges. He does science but doesn't do this, right? If we look carefully at this, isn't this another description? Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
No, there are more descriptions.
Right.
It's just descriptions and descriptions.
right.
And what are descriptions? But we can't explain what a description is without describing it.
Yeah,
So-
there you go. Right. And so this was the worry, right? Like, if Christian is a description, otherwise known as a construct, okay, well, who is he really? Like, every description describes something, right? Like, when we sit down and we try to write down the details of a flower, right, what are we describing? Well, we're describing this thing called a flower.
Right.
Right. But the description is not the flower. Not really, right?
Right. I guess it's just a label for an entity.
That's right. So there's this description of Cyrus, and the question is, well, what is the description
what
of
is Cyrus? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Cyrus itself means nothing but like who I am, I guess.
Right. Who is
Oh,
Cyrus?
geez.
Right? That's
Cyrus
the
is
question.
a compilation of atoms, basically.
Well,
That's
isn't
the
that
best
another
I
description?
can- yeah. I mean,
Who are we beyond description?
Nothing, I guess.
Yeah.
We're nothing without description. I mean, I guess that's an interesting thought. What do you think? Are we anything without description?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Do you think so? Like,
Yeah. And the key phrase is no description.
yeah. I guess we just have to turn off our brains and not think about it.
Yeah, or like, could we not describe with our brain still intact? Right?
Ooh. So just like no description at all?
Zero, right. Like, see, that goes to the core of the question, who am I? Right?
Yeah.
Who am I? Not Christian, surely not Christian. Before we were born, before we had the name, we existed. Who are we? That's...
I mean, I think we would have to
worrisome.
remove our ability to speak, for sure, if we want to stop describing things. But even then, speech is only half, if not less, of description. Because I can point to things, and I can point at like this and that, and you can say, okay. In your mind, at least, you're thinking backpack, like microphone. Even if you don't necessarily know what those words mean, you see it as this entity.
Right.
And you try and... I guess the core of the idea is that our brains are always trying to come up with an explanation for something, and description helps that. So it's like when I see like a table or something. If I had never seen a table in my life, my brain would immediately think like, okay, flat top, like it's got legs, it's to put things on. I don't know. I think we're forced to just create descriptions of things to understand the world around us. But I mean, we both knew that.
yeah. No. It makes sense. That's part of. I mean, that's what the biologists will tell you. That's part of why we survived as Homo sapiens, is our ability to land in any environment. So long as we can breathe, start figuring out instantly, break it up into pieces, describe everything, create order, create a building, create a way to protect ourselves against lightning. That's what we do best, for sure.
Exactly. I mean, if we had no form of knowledge, we'd just run into every wild animal that we saw and get eaten, or we'd just die of the cold or things like that.
We're good at that, of course.
We're pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd say we're decent.
Figuring things out.
Evolved race.
Decently, yeah.
Earth.
Well, the most evolved that we know, at least. Who knows?
That's a whole other thing. There's definitely other life outside the U.S. But U.S. Of course. Wow, I have not slept enough. Other life outside of Earth. The U.S. is a very small place. But yeah, or at least I think so. Do you think there's more life?
Oh, I mean,
other aliens?
It's hard to say.
People get scooped up by a giant UFO and taken away?
No idea.
Yeah. Crazy. And then, I mean, that has me thinking about the reason why I believe that there's more life outside of Earth is because the universe is ever expanding. And there's, I guess, infinite possibilities for planets and life and yada yada. But then I think about, why do I even think that? Why do I think the universe is expanding? And it's because other people have told me.
There you go. There you go.
And so now I'm like,
how can we trust? That's right.
Mm-hmm. And then how do they know? Because I mean, science exists, but like,
this is good.
What even is science? Descriptions.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of descriptions.
I mean, arguably a reliable. Okay, not how reliable, but more reliable than most.
More reliable than just someone. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I mean, like, yeah, it does depend. At least it's a model that's helped us. Mm-hmm. But what we've been talking about seems to suggest that this model is good. It helps us do stuff, but it seems to be limited. It's not helping us really grasp reality.
Right. It gives us, I think the way I picture it is like, it's like silhouettes, like where you can tell kind of something or kind of what something is, but you don't really know what it is. And there's just always, I guess, this curtain in the way where we will never truly know. I think that's a very rudimentary way of thinking about that, and very, I wouldn't say negative way, but negative way thinking about it. But yeah, I just don't think we'll ever know anything. Very sad thinking that.
Yeah, but it's just like, the problem is it appears that we just bought into one way of saying things. Mm-hmm. Just by virtue of the society in which we live, we bought into one way of seeing things.
Right. And
so, one of the things we've learned through the society is that, well, we can never know everything. We're taught that as well.
Yeah.
Right? So, but few of us ever asked the question, well, would we truly, is it really true that how do we know that we'll never know everything? That's right.
We don't know.
Yeah. Right. So,
everything is unknown, Christian. Everything is unknown.
Or maybe ask a question like, what would it look like to know everything? Right. What would that look like? Right.
I don't know.
Do we know that there's not an answer out there?
No, we don't. I mean, I guess in theory, know something. I know everything. I don't know what that would look like. I don't even know if that would be like a human. If that would look like a human. If you know everything, then you know everything. Because then that gets me. That gets to like a weird sci-fi pseudo-religious realm where it's like if you know everything and you know science and this and that, can you then prevent against like death and aging and this and that, and then do you ascend to be like a higher being of some kind? And it's like, but I have no idea. I don't know what knowing everything would look like. I think Indiana Jones, I think they did a great job. I think it was the like Crystal Skull movie. I don't remember the actual title.
Not familiar.
Well, basically in the movie there's like this like alien skull, and I guess if you touch it, I might be butchering this. It's been years since I've seen this movie, but if you touch it, I think you get granted like you either get granted like a wish of some kind. I think it's a wish. And this one like woman in the movie who's like an evil character, like, she touches it, gets her wish, and she wishes to know everything, and then it just kills her. Like she just like starts spewing like light and stuff like out of her eyes and like mouth, and it just knowing everything. Like she said, like she made a comment where it's like, oh, I know too much, as she's like dying, and then she like dies because she just couldn't handle the information.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of think of it like that, where it's just like, oh, okay, suddenly you know everything, and then you're done. I mean, what even would be the meaning of life if you knew everything? It'd be pretty boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes life interesting. Not knowing.
No.
I mean, think about it. If you knew, I mean, just like simple things, like if you knew exactly what your day was going to look like every single day, and you knew exactly what was going to happen, like, what's the point? There's no point. It's just the same. It's day in, day out. I mean, I guess you could get enjoyment out of doing things like that, but I think I would get pretty bored pretty quickly if I knew. Because I'm saying knowing everything in the sense of, like, not necessarily like knowing your schedule, but, like, knowing how you're going to feel at a certain time. So, like, knowing at 8:12 p.m., talking to Christian, I feel X, and, like, I feel this, and my body feels like that. Like, I feel like that would be so boring.
Because the idea is because we're saying then if you know everything, you know what's going to happen.
There's no surprises in life, and it's just...
Right. A basic human need is uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Wow.
What?
Just that thought. That's...
Uncertainty is... Yeah.
Uncertainty as a basic human need is just, I guess, a profound concept to me, or at least I'm not struggling to grasp it as much as I'm just kind of thinking about it now, and like that's interesting. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it would really be trouble if we didn't have it. Yeah.
Wow. Life is crazy. The world is crazy. The universe, existence is crazy. What even is existence? It goes back to what is reality.
Yeah. And just
have purpose.
Yeah.
I said, and do we have purpose?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, is there like, so there are many schools of thought here, right? One of them says, look, human beings are born for a reason. Others say, no, life is all completely random. What's your take on this?
I guess I subscribe more to the idea of like life is pretty random. I don't think there's like a specific purpose for each person. I think once each person like comes into existence, there becomes purpose for them, and you can create purpose in your life. Kind of like how a doctor, like their purpose becomes to help others. So I don't think life has no purpose. Like by no means do I think life has no purpose. But I don't think that life itself, like the creation of life itself, had a purpose. I think it's more just random and we create purpose.
Okay, so purpose is something that...
Like a social construct.
That we construct. Okay.
Something we construct, I guess, to cope with the uncertainty of our origin.
Okay, the uncertainty of our origin. We're confused about that. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, like, the uncertainty of just why does anything exist? Why is Earth a thing? Why are we a thing? Why are lions a thing? Like, why did evolution take place? Why were there atoms? Like, I guess why?
Okay.
And then that gets to the scientific question of what is the beginning?
Like Big Bang.
Yeah, like Big Bang Theory. And then, like, what was the purpose of that?
Right.
I guess it's just a random occurrence. But if you go even deeper before that, like, what was before that?
Right. Okay. So there's a lot of, like, so beginnings create a lot of uncertainty, is what we're saying. Mm-hmm. And
it's like our idea of having purpose, I think, stems from the lack of knowledge around our origin, if that makes sense. So, like, the reason why we search for purpose is because we don't know what our origin was and, like, what the origin of everything was.
Okay.
So, or at least that's what I think. That's what I think.
So if we knew are we saying that if we knew the origin of everything,
then I wouldn't necessarily say that we'd think we have purpose suddenly, because I think there'd still be so much uncertainty, like, between people, and it would just be like a different kind of search for purpose. It would be like, okay, what job am I going to have? Like something simple like that. But if we knew, I guess, why anything was created, then I feel like we would have at least some kind of, not necessarily purpose, but I guess just an understanding. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. As I think about it, I, like, think about, like, many different aspects of it, like, different sides to it. But I guess I believe that if we knew the origin of reality, then we would have some additional form of purpose in life. Or lack of purpose. Who knows? We could find out that it was a fluke. Mm-hmm. Oops, evolution happened. Oops, the Earth didn't mean to be created. But yeah.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Right. So one thing we're saying is that, well, a way to figure out, one thing that would give us purpose is knowing why stuff began, like the reason for them. Mm-hmm. Right. So, for example, when it comes to a human life, well, what's the purpose of your life? What's the purpose of our life? And it would be like, okay, the reason we were born, we'd be able to understand that better if we knew the beginning, the reason we were born. Purpose. Okay.
Because then you keep going back to, like, okay, I was born because my parents loved each other and they decided to have a kid. And then it's like, okay, well, why were they born? And then you just keep going further and further and further back. And it's like just this huge, I guess, lineage of uncertainty and just why? Like, why did any of this happen? Why do species even feel the need to reproduce? Like, why didn't we just evolve into a species that was like, okay, cool, like, we're just gonna die off now?
Right. Okay, so here we're looking at things in terms of like more of a historical evolutionary perspective.
Yeah.
Looking at things, how they came about from the past. Mm-hmm. Which raises the question, is it possible for us to know right now what our purpose is without having to look to the past to find it?
Absolutely not.
No?
I don't think so.
How can we be so sure? Yeah.
I think because there's just so much uncertainty. Like, even if you find some purpose for yourself, I don't think you could ever fully believe in that. Like, if I were just to say, okay, my purpose in life was to wear shoes or something simple like that. That was my purpose in life. You could keep thinking about that and have that uncertainty of, like, okay, why was my purpose to wear shoes? But, like, I don't know. That there's just too much uncertainty in my mind where it's like, I just can't fathom ever knowing what our purpose is. And I don't even know what myself or other people would do if we knew, if we had some kind of specific purpose. But I don't know what we would do if we knew our purpose. I think that kind of goes back to the idea of like the human need for the unknown. Like I feel like, at least for me, it would make me potentially sad, potentially upset, knowing that like everything was for one reason.
Okay, so if
it was for like multiple reasons, I guess that would be a better mindset. So like my purpose was like to meet you and come on this podcast.
Right.
That's my purpose in life. But I think that actually makes me think differently, where I don't think there would ever even be like one purpose for someone. I think it would be like many, many purposes, like an ever expanding list of purposes. Like I guess you could think of it like that. Like one of my purposes in life was to come on this podcast and like talk about this shit. Or like one of my purposes in life was to eat a ham sandwich.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's a slippery slope, man. It's a slippery slope.
Well,
Thinking is a slippery slope.
Yeah, no, that's true, because once again we're thinking about purpose. We're looking at purpose, and we're seeing that it's hard to find purpose through thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like
the more we think about it, the less purpose we have.
Right, exactly. And this again goes to stuff we've always been taught. Right? What is your purpose? Should be able to, or at least it should be.
Well, I mean, like, I think of it as simply as like when someone asks you, or asks like a college student or a kid or whatever, like, what are you going to do in life? That's really just a vernacular way of saying like, what is your purpose?
Right.
Like, what are you worth? Like, why are you doing anything? Because I mean, when you think about it, like, that's the way people look at like students and stuff. It's always like, okay, well, what are you gonna do job wise? Like, do you have any purpose? Is there any purpose for you going to school?
Right.
Are you just going to school because you want to waste your parents' money, or you want to waste your money and time?
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal? So it's like, I think humans inherently just are always searching for purpose, but will never find it.
Well, that is the question. Can we find purpose?
In my mind, no. I don't know. Well, jeez.
What?
I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe, potentially. I don't think anytime soon. But granted, maybe one day one of those giant UFOs will land and suddenly everything makes sense. But I guess simply put, no. I don't think people will ever know their purpose. At least I don't think I'll ever know my purpose. I don't find it that. I think...
Are you fine with that?
Yeah.
Is that...
I think before I wasn't as okay with that, and now I still struggle with that. But I think I'm slowly coming to terms with just being like,
You've just accepted your fate.
I don't know what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I don't know what my purpose in life is. Like, my life is just unknown. There's so many unknowns.
Well, okay. So there's one view of purpose which is just, okay, everything is known, right? Mm-hmm. And we're saying that's kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
And how about a view of purpose? What if we think of purpose instead as like an end goal, right? So for instance, okay, Microsoft, a laptop on every desk in every home. Okay. Right, that's the purpose of the entire organization, right? And so, I mean, it's still filled with uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, forget about after. What about before, right? I mean, it's uncertain, but they still have a purpose.
Yeah,
right.
That is true.
Right.
So I guess...
Doesn't the purpose actually help them with the uncertainties?
I think so, yeah. And I think that more draws on the idea of, like, humans constantly create purposes for themselves. And I think that's what I've realized now, is it's like, our purpose in life, in my opinion, is whatever we make it. So, like, if you're a doctor, your purpose in life is to, like, help people. And, like, that might not be your purpose in life, but if I became a doctor, that would be my purpose, would be, like, to help others. So I guess the creation of purposes is more to help further ourselves as humans, or like, fulfill ourselves as humans. I think that's the better word.
Okay, what do you mean?
Like, having, like, a quantifiable form of fulfillment. So it's like, for example, with Microsoft, like, what truly is success for them? Like, who knows? You can't say what success is without capping it at something. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, like, success for Microsoft is having a laptop for every person, or like at every desk. Like, that is their measurement of success. But they could technically go beyond that. They could have 4 laptops per desk.
Right.
So it's just like creating these measurable, I guess, benchmarks to get to. So you have some goal to create purpose. So, like, in the idea of thinking you have purpose, or thinking you have some purpose to achieve, creates your purpose. So it's like, if I were to think, like for example, I am considering going into Chinese medicine.
Okay.
And doing that degree, and then
practicing. Is this actually what you're trying to do?
This is actually, like,
great.
My life. And I guess one of the big reasons why I'm doing that is because I've created in my own mind that one of my purposes in life, or at least one of my desired purposes, is to help people and to, like, treat people and make people feel better. And I guess that is me creating some kind of, like, physical benchmark to create my life's purpose, where it's like the benchmark is helping people. It's not necessarily, like, a goal that can be reached, like the Microsoft example, but it's like, it gives me purpose.
Okay.
Which I guess delves into the idea of purpose is, like, whatever we create. And, like, I think that's, like, a very powerful tool that humans have. It's like the ability to create purpose in our own lives. Because, like, for a while, I had, I guess, a very dark mindset where I was just like, nothing matters. Like, humans have no purpose. Like, if one day all of us were wiped out, like, whatever. Like, who gives a fuck? And I still believe that to a certain degree, where it's like, okay, I don't know what the purpose of humanity is as a whole, so fuck it. But at the same time, I find comfort in creating purpose for myself and creating these kinds of benchmarks where it's like, okay, like, I'm here to do a specific thing. Like, my life isn't necessarily meaningless but, like, it's weird, at least for me. This is the stuff I think about. This is what I was telling you is, like, the detrimental thinking that happens in my mind.
Okay.
Is, like, switching between the sides where it's, like, creating purpose and being like, okay, this is my purpose in life, but then also knowing that I've created that purpose, and that, at least in my mind, in the grand scheme of things, I'm one of over 7 billion, and if I drop dead tomorrow, like, a few people will be sad, but what does it matter?
Life goes on.
You know, life goes on.
Yeah.
And that's a scary, scary thought.
Okay, so that's like a major dilemma you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. It's, okay, on the one hand, we want to create purpose for ourselves. On the other hand, we know we constructed the purpose.
Exactly. So, like, what is it worth?
What is it worth? Is it real? Is it just, like, some made-up thing? Mm-hmm. Right? Why should we be taken seriously?
I think now I've just come to terms with, I know it's a made-up thing, but I find comfort in that, so I'm okay with it. And I've accepted. It's like, that might just be total bullshit, but I'm happy, I guess, being ignorant of my purpose.
Right.
And just creating my own destiny.
And does embracing the fact that there is no purpose make life easier to live?
I think so. At least for me, it took a long time to, I guess, come to that realization. But I think now more than ever, I kind of realized that whole idea that, like, nothing really matters means so much, because it means you can do whatever you want. Like, I could today I want to be going into Chinese medicine or whatever, but tomorrow I could figure out my purpose or choose my purposes to go work at NASA and, like, be a rocket scientist or whatever.
Hmm.
Like, I have that freedom now that I know that I guess, like, there isn't some kind of set purpose that I know, and that I get to create that purpose. I can do whatever I want. I mean, within, I guess, social bounds. Can't break the law, of course. But yeah, I guess I find a bit of comfort in knowing that nothing matters.
Okay, wait. We need to unpack that. All right, wait. Let's see. So
that's a huge thing in itself to unpack.
Yeah. Okay. We're trying to figure out whether our life has a purpose or not. Eventually, come to the conclusion that nothing really matters.
Yeah.
That our life doesn't have any purpose,
mm-hmm.
and we find this liberating. And the reason it's liberating is because, well, now we can make up any purpose we want.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we also have to be careful with that statement because I think it's very liberating for like myself and maybe like someone like you.
Yeah.
But a lot of other people, I like can't even like, I guess, come up with a description for these people. But a lot of people get scared by that idea. It's like if they don't have purpose, then they just freak out and shut down. And like that's where you get people who just, I don't know, they lose their will to live, which is a terrible thing. So I think it's a lot of just kind of like battling with if nothing matters and if, I don't know, it's weird. But sorry, you're saying.
No. That's a good point you brought us to. So, do you think that part of the reason, or like one of the key causes of why people, let's say, commit suicide or like, basically end things too early, is one of the key reasons because they can't find a purpose for their lives?
I think that's probably one of the reasons. Obviously, there's a lot that goes on with a huge life decision like that. But I think that's definitely one of it. I think that whole idea of nothing mattering is basically like the basis of religion itself, is like creating some kind of entity or some kind of reason to live.
Yeah.
So people are like, okay, we have our God or we have Allah or whatever. And that gives them purpose and it gives them some kind of comfort in knowing that stuff isn't in their power, that there's some other entity that gives them purpose and that I guess is like this benefactor. And personally, I don't see it that way, and that might be dark, but I think that's totally fine for people to seek purpose in something else like religion or whatever. And then at the end of the day, that's just like another social construct. So basically what I'm saying is like everyone is buying into that same idea that I'm talking about of creating your own purpose. They're just doing it through different channels. So like one person has created their purpose by believing in God. And then other people, I guess, also subscribe to that idea. And then that's their purpose. They've created their purpose is to believe in said God. Because like this, oh God, this is going to get into a question of learning.
Okay, wait a second.
Sciences.
Before we go there, this is a great concept you're bringing up here. So one way, okay, well, there's this problem of purposelessness that we have. One way to go about it is to realize, well, okay, life has no purpose, and therein find some sort of liberation, and to pick whatever purpose we like. Another method is, well, just go to church or some religion, and basically that your purpose is to believe in whichever entity it is, if it's Allah, whatever the God is for the religion, right? So, do we have other options other than these two?
Well, I don't think they're that different, to be honest. I think.
Oh, the two options?
Yeah, I think the commonality is it's choosing your purpose. Like at the end of the day, it's always a choice of purpose.
Right.
Granted, I think the thing that makes me feel, I guess, uneasy with saying that is then looking at like people who were born into like religious families and brought up that way, where it's not necessarily like a choice anymore as much as just like learned behavior.
Yeah.
But I think both at the root are the same thing, where it's choosing a purpose.
Okay. A made-up purpose.
Yeah, a made-up purpose. It's just doing it in different ways. So, like, my way being someone who isn't religious is, like, literally, like, setting, like, goals. Like, okay, my purpose is to do this. My purpose is to get an A on this paper. Like, whatever. Where someone else might be like, my purpose is whatever, like, my God has determined. And, like, that's just their purpose. But they're choosing. The whole point is it's a choice.
Okay. So, all right. So what we're saying is that these things that appear different are really not that different. Mm-hmm. That the religious person who chooses to believe in a religion, most of them do, and the person who says, well, life has no purpose, let me create purpose, they're really both choosing.
Yeah, they're really both doing the same thing.
Right, choosing a purpose. Okay. What else have we got other than choosing a purpose?
Death, I guess.
Oh, come on.
I feel like that's the easy way out with the answer.
Yeah. What?
I don't know what else we have.
Okay. How about this? Could it be that? Okay. Again, we're not sure, but could it be that there is a purpose out there for us, mm-hmm. and when we construct things and say, oh, this is a purpose when it actually isn't, that even the construction itself is still going to leave us miserable.
Right. Possibly. I definitely think it could happen. That's why I think it might actually be detrimental to many humans if someday we find out we have some specific purpose, because I think it'll make a lot of people feel like they've wasted their lives, wasted potential, wasted everything, fulfilling something that was not their purpose, or whatever their purpose was determined to be.
Well, this is a very real problem. Yeah. We have it a lot. Like, all one needs to do is to hang out with elderly people, mm-hmm. and you'll hear it from them all the time. They just feel like they've wasted their life, right? And
what ifs?
Right. Others like actively pursued a purpose, you know, and they still felt that something was missing.
Empty.
Yes. So,
I think
is there something for us? You know, is the question, or how can we tell whether if there is or isn't something for us?
I don't know. I just don't have a scientific and informed response to that. That's, I guess, an idea of like lack of fulfillment. And lack of fulfillment, I think that's more of like an internalized thing, and I don't know if it can ever really be satiated. Like I just can't right now, at least, see some kind of situation in which anyone would feel like 100% fulfilled. Like, yeah, people die like happy, like a lot. They're like, okay, yeah, I lived a full life. But like, what even is that? What even is a full life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is a full life? Good question.
I don't think anyone will have a full life. I think the whole idea of a full life is bullshit.
Okay.
How many people die without like skydiving?
Mm-hmm.
Like tons.
Okay, when we say full life, what do we mean?
Full life, I guess that's the idea of knowing and doing everything. Or at least in my mind, I see
like everything that could possibly be done.
It's like I've lived my life, I've seen everything, I've done everything, gone. And that's like a very literal, I guess, description in my head. Like the way I guess I choose to think of it more is like a full life is living a life that you can just be happy about afterwards. A lot of people struggle with that.
Right. I mean, surely it can't be doing everything, right? It's just not possible, is it?
Yeah, I think I was saying it too literally.
Right. What else could they mean when they say dying a full life? Having a full life.
I think it's more just related to happiness.
Okay.
And it's like, if you're happy and you're ready to go, then I mean, like, no one's ever ready to go. I mean, some people are. But, I don't know. For me, at least, living a full life means living a life that I can be happy looking back on. That I can look back, and even through times of hardship or whatever, be like, that was fine. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with what happened. Like, I'm okay if some person in my life dies and I felt like horrible grief and it was just this emotional time or whatever. I just want to be able to, at least to feel full. For me, it would be just like accepting what has happened in life and being like, okay, I'm fine with this. This was the life of Cyrus Moassessi. Like, and that's it.
Okay. So that's okay.
So to me, I guess fullness relies heavily on happiness. And happiness and acceptance. Acceptance of what you think you are. And I guess just what you think you are in your experiences.
You're saying fullness relies on acceptance.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think it means just like acceptance of like yourself, acceptance of like your life, acceptance of your experiences, your memories, and this and that. I think the people who feel empty are those who rejected parts of their life, like their lives and stuff. It's like the people who are like, oh, I could have done this in my life. I could have done that. Like, oh, it's such a shame. Like, oh, I've grown so old and there were so many things that I should have done and things like that. I think that's where you get that sense of emptiness. The people who are full, or I guess believe that they're full, are the people who can look back and be like, it's fine I didn't go skydiving, like, in my life. I'm totally fine with that. It's okay. Like, I did my thing. I lived a life that I can accept.
Right. So is this happiness?
I don't even think it's necessarily related to happiness now that I think about it. I think it's less happiness, more just straight acceptance. Like, even like as like a criminal, I think a criminal could die in prison feeling full and feeling not necessarily like fulfilled, but full, and accept and be like, okay, this is my life. Like, this is what I did. I made these choices. I'm here now. I can pass knowing that, like knowing that this is who and what I am. So I guess that's my idea of what fullness is.
So it's possible to die full. That is, having accepted one's life without being fulfilled.
Yeah.
But be sad.
Yeah, I think you can die full, but be sad, or not have lived, I guess, like whatever society has determined a fulfilled life is. I think that idea of fullness is just, in my mind, fullness more means like acceptance, just like acceptance. So I do really think that like a criminal or someone like that, or someone who's just made poor life choices, or I mean, who am I to even say what poor life choices are? But at least for like myself, I just want to be in a space when I go out that I just know that I'm okay with it. Like, I was Cyrus the whole way through. I was no one else, and that's it.
Okay.
And that's like fulfillment to me, or not fulfillment, like fullness.
How is acceptance different from giving up? Surrender. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think it's different. I think it's vastly different, because surrender itself, I think it's just the opposite of acceptance. Surrender is like saying, I was not myself, I was something else. Like, I don't know, like I can't live with myself. Like, to me, surrendering would be like saying, like, I had a failed life. Like, my life was miserable, everything was terrible, I was somebody else, like it was just garbage. But I guess in the same breath, you could still have like a full life and accept that life. I don't know, it's weird, because the two I feel like are opposites.
Which one?
Acceptance and
surrender?
Surrender.
Okay.
Those two I feel like they're opposites, but at the same time, like, They're very similar. Like they're very,
That's right.
Yeah. More and more I'm realizing that things that look or feel so polar are often extremely similar. But it's like one, I don't know. It's hard to explain because like surrender, like I was saying, I think surrender is more just not accepting like who you are, like what you are. It's the person who dies saying, I wish I was somebody else. Like I wish that I was Bill Gates. Like why wasn't that me? Versus the acceptance is the person who dies poor, rich, or whatever, and says, I lived me. Like I lived my life, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's just like, it's just such a powerful thing.
Okay.
I don't think a lot of people achieve it, unfortunately.
Well, that's the thing. Is it something to be achieved? Is it?
I don't even know.
At what point should this acceptance happen?
That's another.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know, I guess, ever what our fate is. So I think acceptance. If I want to go with the utopian thought that I shit on so heavily before, acceptance I think should always just be in the present. Like you should always. I try more and more now. Before not so much, but more and more now. To just always accept who I am, and like, no matter what goes on in life, no matter what poor decision, whatever poor decision I make, whatever good decision I make, it's always Cyrus making that decision. Like it's always. At the end of the day, it's me, and I know it's me, and I'm fine with that. And I don't know, I just don't think there's ever, you can never say, like, there's a certain time in your life, like, oh, it's 60, I need to accept myself. Ideally, everyone, I think, should always accept themselves, but me saying that also sounds like total bullshit.
Okay.
Because it's so hard. You can't. It's just as like humans, we always have that lack of acceptance of ourselves, and even the people that say, "Oh, I accept myself. Oh, that's why I walk around nude all the time because I've accepted my body." And this and that. I think that's horseshit. I don't think anybody ever fully accepts themselves, but I think it's important to reach, I guess, a certain level of acceptance, like an acceptable form of acceptance.
There you go.
I think, I guess the important part is to accept yourself more than you reject yourself.
Okay, so
you can still have that rejection. I'm saying that's absolutely natural. People are like, okay, well, that was not me making that decision, or oh, I made that poor decision. I don't like that. I think that rejection is okay, but I think it's more important to have the acceptance over the rejection. Okay,
so here's like kind of like a battle between acceptance and rejection, and we want to make sure that acceptance is the stronger part.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But then again, I don't even know how to quantify that.
Right. There's a quantification part. Lack of Okay, but there's another question though. Like, still with acceptance. So we're saying that acceptance seems to be an ideal, a utopic idea, complete acceptance. Mm-hmm. By that, do we mean that complete acceptance can never be attained? One can never completely accept oneself?
I think, that was a weird sound. I think it's possible. I think it's unlikely, but I think it's possible.
How do we know it's possible to completely accept oneself?
Dude, I don't even know what knowing is.
It's alright, let's poke in the dark. Let's see if we could come up with something.
I guess. Well, then I guess I don't think that acceptance, 100% acceptance, is possible. I think you can get very close. I think you can be like hand sanitizer, where it's 99.99%. You can almost achieve full acceptance, but I think it probably will always linger some form of rejection, some kind of thought of, what if I did this? What if I made that decision? That was a poor decision. I kind of reject that in my life or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you can get pretty close. I really do. I really do think you can get pretty close to accepting yourself. I mean, you look at like some of the criminals in jail. Granted, a lot of them, what I'm about to explain, is because of like mental health issues and things like that. But there are people that are content, and they're like, okay, I am in prison because I made a poor choice, and I accept that. Like, I accept my fate. I accept that like this is because of me. And so I think it's almost beautiful in a sense, where it's like, even though you've done something or you have something that you could reject so heavily, you're at peace with it. And it's like, it's just, okay, that's a fact. That is a saga. It's part of the saga that is like Cyrus's life. And I guess that's the idea. We can't change the past. Like, so we cope with it. And I guess that's my coping mechanism. It's just accepting that whatever has happened has happened. We only move forward. There's only one constant. It's that life always moves forward.
Okay. So this brings up the question of, what time is it?
It is 8:51.
Oh, okay.
I have to go in like a minute or two. But
oh crap! Yeah, we probably should end this. All right, good idea. So I mean, it was supposed to be 90 minutes, so technically it should be done. So we've gone over time. So the alarm was set.
That's perfect though.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we got to talk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. You've made me think a lot about, obviously, thinking, but a lot about myself, and a lot about why I think things, the way I think things, and I guess a lot about my own purpose. And I think this conversation at least has helped me, I think, come to terms with a lot of stuff in my life. So thank you for that. Like, really, really, like, deeply thank you.
Well, it was a fun conversation. We learned a lot as well.
I think so. We learned a lot about knowing nothing.
Yeah, and what's beyond that? Yeah. Sure. Well, yeah. Thanks once again for joining us on this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and let's end this. All right, dude. This is great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast episode. We hope that it was of value to you. We hope that it was able to kickstart your own journey towards figuring out these fundamental questions of your life. What is your purpose? Why were you born? What happens when you die? What does it mean to know? If your name and the things that are said about you are merely a description of you, who are you really? What are you all about? How can you live a fulfilled life? What does it mean to live a full life? What does it mean to die empty? All of these questions, these are really up to you to figure out. These are really up to you to solve and tackle. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, ideas, if there's anything really that's holding you back, that's stopping you from realizing your potential, from dying empty, please let us know. Our email is actually in the episode description. Otherwise, thank you very much once again for listening to this episode, and have a relentless week. Bye.